Are you kidding me? I bought land fair and square, and somehow there are 5 houses sitting on it that I didn't build. The HOA lady didn't just scream at me for walking on my own property. She called the cops, said I was a threat, and told me I'd be dealt with. What she didn't know, I had receipts and a lawyer. And now, they're about to pay. Big time. Before we dive into the full story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment if you've ever had to deal with an out-of-control HOA. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. It started like any normal Saturday. Cloudy skies, hot coffee in the cup holder, GPS set to a plot of land I'd bought 2 months earlier through a tax auction. The address didn't look like much on paper, just coordinates and a lot number. But I'd seen the satellite images. The lot was huge, at least 3 acres, wedged between a newly developed suburban neighborhood and a wooded hill, perfect for a future investment or even a house of my own. I figured I'd find an empty stretch of grass or, worst case, a garbage-filled dump site. What I did not expect were paved roads, driveways, mailboxes, and 5 full-sized houses. I stopped the truck on the shoulder, double-checked my GPS, then triple-checked. Same spot. Lot 143B. Coordinates matched. I looked back up. There were people mowing lawns, kids' bikes in the yards, cars in the driveways. A woman watering her flower beds waved at me like I was some lost delivery driver. I didn't wave back. I was too busy feeling the slow-motion train wreck starting to unfold in my head. I pulled forward into what looked like a cul-de-sac that shouldn't exist. Parked beside the curb, stepped out. Gravel crunched under my boots. I looked around, trying to make sense of how 5 homes had been built on a piece of land I legally owned and had never authorized anyone to touch. "Hey, excuse me," a sharp voice rang out. I turned, expecting maybe a neighbor. Instead, I saw a woman in her late 50s, tan visor, tennis skirt, and that classic storm cloud scowl you can smell coming. Clipboard in hand. Of course, Denise. "You can't park here. This is a private street. HOA regulations." I stayed calm. "Actually, I think this might be my land. I just bought lot 143B. So this is the address." Her mouth twitched. "Impossible. This is Oak Shadow Estates. This entire cul-de-sac is part of our development. The land was vacant and unused." I shook my head. "Number, it wasn't. I have the deed. I came to check the boundary markers." She let out a sharp laugh like I just claimed I was Santa Claus. "Sir, I don't know what scam you're trying to pull, but if you don't leave right now, I will call security." "Security?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She pulled out her phone like a pistol. "Trespasser. Tall male, jeans and flannel, threatening the residents. Possibly unstable." I stared at her. "Are you serious right now?" "You have 3 minutes," she snapped. "Then you'll be removed." She wasn't bluffing. 2 minutes later, a white SUV with flashing amber lights rolled in, the words Oak Shadow Security stenciled on the side. A guy in a security vest stepped out like he was a beat cop. "Sir, I need you to vacate the premises immediately." I opened my glove box, pulled out the folder with the deed, stamped and notarized. "This isn't your property, it's mine." He took the paper, skimmed it, looked unsure. Denise barked, "That's fake. Anyone can print papers. He's lying." "You built 5 houses on my land," I said slowly, voice cold now. "And now you're threatening me for showing up? How did no one think to check the ownership?" Denise's face flushed red, but she stood her ground. "This development was approved by the city. All land was properly acquired. If there's an issue, take it to court. Meanwhile, you're still trespassing. This is an HOA-regulated area, and you are not an approved visitor." "Lady, I own this dirt. I don't need your permission to stand on it." "You're scaring the neighbors," she said, waving toward a woman peeking through her blinds. Security moved closer. "Sir." That's when I stepped back, took out my phone, and hit record. "You're threatening a legal landowner on his own property," I said. "I suggest you all think very carefully about your next move." Denise looked shaken now, just for a split second, but she recovered. "This isn't over." She was right. It wasn't. Not even close. By Monday morning, I was knee-deep in county records, highlighter in one hand, coffee in the other. I'd barely slept since Saturday. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Denise's smug face telling me to vacate my own property like I was a squatter. And the craziest part? I still couldn't wrap my head around how it happened. How do you build 5 homes on land you don't own and not notice? But the deeper I dug, the uglier it got. The sale at the tax auction had been completely legal. The previous owner, some LLC that had gone bankrupt, had stopped paying property taxes 3 years back. The city seized the land, listed it at auction, and I scooped it up for less than the price of a used car. I hadn't even looked at it in person. That was my mistake. What I didn't know, what no one told me, was that the Oak Shadow HOA had been using that land unofficially for years. Somehow they'd convinced themselves it was community expansion space. Maybe the original developers planned to buy it and never did. Maybe someone just started building and no one stopped them. Either way, the construction had started less than 2 years ago, long after the LLC had defaulted, meaning they built 5 single-family homes on property they didn't own, and then sold them. I found the building permits, all issued under a parcel ID that didn't exist in the official county records. My lot was listed as undeveloped, no structures, no utilities, but there they were, 5 houses, each with a real estate record tied back to a different plat number, all off by just 1 digit. A clerical error? Or fraud? I needed answers. I started by knocking on a few doors. The first 2 homeowners didn't answer. The third, a young couple named Jordan and Melissa, opened up cautiously. I explained who I was, showed them the deed. The color drained from Melissa's face. "You're saying our house is on your land," she whispered. "I'm saying," I replied carefully, "that the HOA built this entire row illegally, and now the land belongs to me." Jordan got defensive fast. "We paid for this house. We have a mortgage." "I'm not blaming you," I said, "but you might want to call your title company." That night, an envelope was shoved under my apartment door. No name, no return address. Inside, 4 grainy photos, clearly taken from a phone. All of them showed the construction site during different phases. The last one had a note scribbled in pen. She knew. I stared at those words for a long time. The next day, I met with an attorney named Carla Massey. She specialized in property disputes. 5 minutes into the meeting, she closed the folder and said, "Oh, this is a mess. And a jackpot." Mess, I figured. Jackpot. If we can prove the HOA knowingly built on land they didn't own, we're looking at either full control of those properties or a lawsuit that'll bankrupt their entire board. "I don't want 5 houses," I said. "I want justice." She smiled. "That's the same thing sometimes." We filed a cease and desist to the HOA, demanding immediate negotiations. That's when the retaliation started. A letter from the city arrived that week, citing me for illegal dumping on community land. Then another, noise complaints for disturbing the peace on a date I wasn't even in town. My name was suddenly on every HOA watch list, including one that circulated by email to residents. "Be advised, suspicious mail claiming false ownership. Do not engage." At night, my tires were slashed twice. Denise wasn't trying to fight fair. She was trying to make me walk away. But I wasn't 16 anymore, getting blamed for cheating on a test I studied for. I'd been through worse. I wasn't going anywhere. By week's end, Carla sent me a text. "Got the smoking gun. Call me." She'd uncovered a zoning request filed 2 years earlier by Denise personally. In it, she acknowledged that the parcel wasn't under HOA control. She wrote, "Currently owned by external party, but intended for future integration." The problem was she never bought it. She just started building. It was time to go public. Within hours, Denise responded by accusing me of fraud, filing a counterclaim that called my deed invalid, and claiming I was running a scam to extort honest families. She didn't just deny everything, she doubled down. Her countersuit included a 16-page document packed with blurry screenshots, hand-drawn boundary lines, and even a printed-out comment thread from Facebook where one resident said they remembered someone mentioning the HOA had plans to buy that land. That was her evidence. But that wasn't the worst of it. 2 days later, my name and photo appeared in a printed HOA bulletin mailed to every house in Oak Shadow Estates. The headline, "Who is Marcus Lane? A threat to our community?" Underneath, a list of cherry-picked facts, twisted timelines, and bold-lettered questions like, why is he really here? And does he have a criminal past? I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. That evening, someone poured used motor oil across my windshield. The next morning, my mailbox was stuffed with shredded paper and a dead squirrel. Denise had activated the full HOA machine. And the neighbors? They followed her lead. Some out of fear, some out of loyalty, and some just because they needed someone to blame. I started getting followed. A black SUV that idled 2 cars behind me no matter where I drove. At night, porch lights snapped on like search beams as I walked past. One time, a man in a fleece vest stood outside his garage holding a baseball bat like he was just waiting for me to blink wrong. But they'd made one mistake. They thought they were scaring a kid. What they didn't know was I'd already been through hell, dragged through the mud at 16, abandoned by classmates, teachers, even my own coach over a false accusation. That stain never washed out. But I'd survived, and I'd promised myself one thing. Next time I was lied about, I wouldn't stay quiet. Carla filed an emergency injunction to stop the HOA from circulating any further bulletins about me. The judge granted it, temporarily. A full hearing was scheduled in 2 weeks. That's when Denise brought out her ace, or what she thought was one. She walked into court with a thick binder labeled Ownership Irregularities. Her lawyer stood beside her like he was presenting evidence in a federal trial. They claimed my deed was filed after a redistricting error, that the lot in question was never meant to be privately acquired, and, get this, that I had tampered with the online parcel map to make it look like the houses were on my land. They submitted doctored screenshots of the city GIS system, faked email printouts from a zoning official I'd never met, a signed affidavit from a former employee of the tax office claiming they warned me the land was under dispute. All of it nonsense. Carla stayed calm, but I could feel her fury bubbling under the surface. Then Denise made her biggest mistake yet. She stepped forward, violating protocol, and gave a speech. No, a monologue. "Your Honor," she said, "we are trying to protect our neighborhood from a hostile actor. This man has harassed residents, disrupted public peace, and is now trying to extort property from innocent families. He's a drifter with no roots in this town, and we believe he may be mentally unstable. There are records, sealed records, from another state." She looked at me like she just played her queen. I didn't blink, just looked at the judge and said, "I've lived in this state since I was 20. I've never been arrested, never had any sealed records. I've got 3 letters of recommendation from local business owners in my briefcase. Would you like to see them?" The judge did. After reading the letters and reviewing the real property records, which Carla had printed directly from the county database, the judge leaned back, steepled his fingers and said, "Well, Miss Sullivan, if these screenshots are accurate, then your HOA has 5 homes built across 2 parcels you don't legally own. That's not just irregular, that's trespass, and possibly fraud." Denise's smile cracked. "Until this is resolved," he continued, "there will be no further threats, bulletins, or communication to residents regarding Mr. Lane. Any violations will result in contempt, and I am ordering a forensic review of the submitted documents. This court will not tolerate fabricated evidence." Her lawyer turned gray. Denise just stood there blinking, but the damage wasn't over. That night, I came back to my apartment to find the door open. My laptop was gone. So was the external hard drive where I stored my scanned documents, maps, and emails. Nothing else touched. No cash stolen, just the files. Denise had just escalated this into war. The break-in changed everything. It wasn't just about property anymore. It wasn't about zoning maps or HOA bylaws. Someone, probably someone hired by Denise, had come into my home, bypassed the lock, and taken only what mattered: my files, my proof. They were getting desperate, and that meant they were vulnerable. Carla called it exactly that: They're sweating, and when people sweat, they screw up. We doubled our backups. I bought a fireproof safe and a second phone just for documentation. Carla connected me with a forensic investigator named Ethan, who specialized in identifying document fraud. Within 3 days, he confirmed what we suspected. The screenshots in Denise's binder were fabricated using a clumsy combination of Photoshop and a browser emulator. That was enough to reopen discovery, enough to get the judge to approve subpoenas for the HOA's internal records. And that's when the cracks exploded into fractures. The first batch of documents we received from the HOA's legal team included email threads, internal memos, and digital receipts. Carla went through them like a shark through water. One message in particular stopped her cold. It was a forwarded thread from Denise to a private contractor, dated a full month before the first house was built. In it, she acknowledged the ownership issue and instructed the contractor to proceed quietly. She even added, "If no one's claimed it by now, they never will." That line alone was damning, but it wasn't the worst one. Another memo, marked internal only, contained a list of possible liabilities tied to the Oak Shadow expansion. Number 3 on the list, use of unverified parcel for development, unclaimed tax auction asset. They knew from the beginning, and they did it anyway. We brought it all to court. The hearing was packed. Not just lawyers and HOA reps, but residents too. Tom Ellis, who lived in house number 2, sat in the back with folded arms and a pale face. Margaret Wynne, the woman who waved at me that first day, wouldn't even look up from her lap. But as Carla presented the evidence, you could feel the room shifting. First, she showed the legal deed transfer from the auction, time-stamped, notarized, and filed months before the construction began. Then she pulled up the forged screenshots from Denise's evidence packet, side by side with the real GIS maps. The differences were obvious. Fonts that didn't match, missing coordinates, broken links. Then came the email. Carla projected it on a screen big enough for everyone to read. Proceed quietly. If no one's claimed it by now, they never will. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Denise sat frozen, her mouth a tight line. Her lawyer visibly deflated beside her, flipping through notes he clearly wasn't planning to need. But we weren't done. Ethan testified next, breaking down the digital forensics. He explained how the email headers showed real timestamps, how the images had mismatched metadata, and how one of the PDFs Denise submitted had a creation date that didn't align with any publicly available data from the city records. Finally, Carla brought up the memo, the one listing possible liabilities. When she read it aloud, the judge leaned forward and asked, "Ms. Sullivan, did you knowingly allow construction on land you didn't own?" Denise didn't answer. "Let the record show," Carla said, "that Oak Shadow HOA knowingly built 5 structures on property they neither owned nor had legal right to use, then attempted to cover it up with forged documentation, character attacks, and possibly illegal surveillance." The judge called a recess. During the break, something strange happened. People started talking to me. Not with anger, not with suspicion, with apology. Tom Ellis approached me near the vending machines. He looked like a man chewing glass. "She said you were a con artist," he muttered. "Said you'd try to steal our homes. But if she knew, all this time—" He trailed off, shook his head. "I got kids in that house. I can't lose it." "You're not the one I'm after," I said quietly. "You bought in good faith. I want the truth and compensation." He nodded slowly. When we returned, the judge issued a temporary ruling. All construction on the disputed lots must stop. All transactions involving those 5 properties were frozen pending final decision, and the HOA was ordered to turn over their full financials for audit. That night, I found a note taped to my windshield. It said only, "I believed her." I'm sorry. The tide was turning. The courtroom was standing room only. Neighbors packed the benches. Reporters lined the back wall. Even the bailiff looked tenser than usual. This wasn't just a property dispute anymore. It had become a reckoning. And at the center of it all sat Denise, in a cream blazer 2 sizes too tight, a look of defiance barely masking the panic in her eyes. The forensic audit Carla demanded had been completed. The findings? Worse than even we imagined. Over $720,000 in unaccounted development expenses, dozens of unapproved assessments, checks written from the HOA fund to shell companies connected to Denise's cousin, inflated invoices for landscaping, consulting fees billed to firms that didn't exist. It wasn't just about my land. Denise had been siphoning money from the entire neighborhood. The judge didn't waste time. Based on the documents, testimony, and the findings of the independent audit, he said, voice level but hard, this court finds the Oak Shadow HOA, under the leadership of Denise Walsh, has committed multiple violations of state law, including unlawful development, misappropriation of funds, and submission of falsified evidence. Denise stood, mouth already opening, but the judge cut her off. You will remain silent unless addressed. She sat. The judge continued. Effective immediately, the 5 houses constructed on Lot 143B revert under ownership to Marcus Lane, legal title holder of the land in question. The homeowners may pursue action against the HOA, not Mr. Lane. That part hurt to hear. I didn't want to ruin anyone's life, but this was never my doing. As for restitution, he added, turning pages, this court awards Mr. Lane financial compensation equal to the appraised value of all improvements made on his land without consent. Total $1.82 million. A hush fell over the room. Someone gasped. Denise didn't move. And one more thing, the judge added, glancing toward the bailiff. 2 uniformed officers entered the room. Based on additional findings from the Financial Crimes Division, Ms. Walsh, please stand. She didn't. The bailiff moved forward. You are being placed under arrest for felony fraud, falsifying public records, and embezzlement. And just like that, the Queen of Oak Shadow Estates was in handcuffs. As they led her out, she twisted around, eyes wild. He tricked you all, she shouted. This trespasser is a liar. He poisoned you. I built this neighborhood. I kept it clean. Her voice echoed, then faded as the doors slammed shut. Outside, neighbors gathered in tight knots. Some whispered. Some looked stunned. And some, like Tom Ellis and Margaret Wynne, walked straight up to me. Thank you, Margaret said softly. We were afraid to fight her. You weren't. Tom nodded, still gruff. You should know, some of us want to buy the land fair and square. We're not like her. I looked at them both. The fight was over. The facts were public. The control was mine. I'm open to that, I said. But next time, no shortcuts, no lies, no queens with clipboards. That night, I stood on the edge of Lot 143B, my land, with a view of 5 houses built on arrogance, denial, and stolen confidence. I'd won, not just the money, not just the land. I won because I didn't back down. So if you've ever been steamrolled by power-hungry people hiding behind fake rules, remember this. They only win when you stay quiet, stand your ground. Even if they build a whole neighborhood on top of it,